Okay, I believe we're live. I'm with Angela Grabkowski. Did I say that right, Angela?
Grabowski, yeah.
Good enough. Okay. Uh,
Close enough.
for some reason, I look like I'm sitting in the dark. I've tried everything. My helper is not here, so I've like cranked up the lights. I don't know what's going on. Tried the white balance, but this isn't about me. This is about Angela, so that's okay. So Angela Grabkowski, and I'm sorry about your name. It's really hard for me to say. She is running for the 7th district of the U.S. House in Indiana. And Angela, this is a first time thing for you, right?
Oh, definitely first time thing and very unexpected thing
And
in terms of the running.
yeah, you entered really late in the game, right?
Yeah, I was actually, listen, I always wanted to be involved in politics, but until February 2nd, I was waiting and hoping that somebody in the Democratic side or on the Republican side with some legislative experience and some financial resources behind them would come into the race because the rep I'm running against, I think, needs to go. He's been on that seat for 14 years. His name is Andre Carson. He inherited that seat from his grandmother. And this is how he stayed in that seat. So he's using his celebrity to maintain his position. He's considered one of the least effective members of Congress. And if you look at the 7th district that he's representing, it's getting worse by the day. So, but we can talk about other things other than just the opponent at this time.
Well, I think it's really great that I mean, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, I admire anyone that's like running right now
Exactly.
doesn't have the politics experience. I think a lot of us are starving for people that aren't career politicians. To that end, you actually are one that has signed on to support term limits, correct?
Absolutely. And if I will get to the House, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm a pretty successful businesswoman. We can talk about my background in just a minute. I don't necessarily look for a job or a career in politics. So if that is going to happen, and I will be chosen by the constituents of the 7th district to represent them, it would not be more than 3 terms as I signed up to do.
And why do you think that's such a problem with people just going in and staying in? Do you think they just lose touch of reality or what people are really looking for? I mean, what's that about?
I think they become corrupt and they stop thinking about the people. So it's all about them and their careers and their next election and their life after next election. So we need people from the people who are going to be representing the people. This is what America is all about. This is why I came to America, to become an American. So I think it's very simple, in my opinion. Whether or not it's going to happen remains to be seen because, again, a lot of them have stayed in the House and in the Senate for 30, 50 years. Look at the Pelosi. Look what's happening. So she's not in touch neither with her district or the rest of the country.
Now let's get into your background. So you were born in the Ukraine.
Yes, I was born in Odessa, Ukraine, uh, 56 years ago. So I spent 23 years in Odessa. So all my growing up happened there. And in 1989, I taken my family. So at that time, I had husband, 2 kids, parents, grandparents, my sister, so all together. And within 3 months, we left Odessa. So we came to the States as political and religious refugees. So I'm of a Jewish descent. So again, I was born in Ukraine. Our native language was Russian, but again, we've experienced enormous amount of anti-Semitism. Uh, but it wasn't only in Ukraine, it was all over. This was the government politics. We didn't have any future, any freedoms ahead of us. And this is why we left. There were a lot of American Jews who flew to Moscow in late 70s and in early 80s, who marched on the streets of Moscow asking the Soviet government to let us go. So it actually happened. So I wish that, the same thing can happen right now, and we will all be marching on the streets to end this crazy war between the two brother nations.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned that the anti-Semitism and that you grew up Jewish, because we're getting propaganda from both sides. In my opinion, it's very hard to sort out the truth. What I have been digging into is you have Putin saying, "Oh no, we're in there to get rid of the Nazis, the neo-Nazis," and I'm sure that there is a propaganda element to that. I mean, gosh, our country's guilty of it too. Like weapons of mass destruction, weapons of okay, how much of that was true and how much of that was propaganda? So I'm sure there's a propaganda element to that, but at the same time, the more I dig in, there does seem to be a Nazi element there still in Ukraine. You can see it in the symbols. You can see it in the documentary, the history of it, of Oliver Stone's Ukraine on Fire. So how much can you sort out for me that there still is a Nazi anti-Semitic element in Ukraine, and how much of that is just an excuse Putin is using?
Again, I left 33 years ago. So we can talk about the politics of this. I think every country has far right. I've traveled a lot throughout Europe. I've seen it with my own eyes. The marching bands of neo-Nazis in Germany and in Poland. And throughout our travels, we were staying at our hotels because we were afraid to get on the streets. It exists everywhere. It exists here in the United States. Everybody's guilty. But how large is that population, and how much harm they can actually do to the population of the country? This is the big question. So again, I visited Ukraine in 93. This is right after the fall of the Soviet Union. And then it was pretty scary. The crime was just going through the roof. It was rampant. It was everywhere. We went to visit our family that was still at that time in Odessa. But then I have not been involved and I have not gone there until 2019. So 2019, Odessa is one of the largest ports on the Black Sea. It's an international town. We had people from all the different religions, all the different nationalities living together. We never had those issues. So how exaggerated it is, I'm sure that it exists. I'm sure that, Azov battalions, they do exist, but how much threat they are, I don't know. I just communicated with my friend from elementary school many, many years ago, asking her how things are in Odessa. And basically just an hour ago at 10:04, they started bombing near the place where we actually lived, and they're bombing the airport. So it is happening. Again, you're talking to people, I think, both on the sides of Russians and the Ukrainians. People are afraid. People are afraid to say something that can stir things up, because there are just two polar sides right now, right? And we're trying to cancel everything and anything that is Russian. I know, like, my aunt just a couple of days ago was asked if she's from Ukraine or she's from Russia. She has her own business. She's an esthetician. And, people, I think it's her luck that she was born in Odessa and not in Moscow or St. Petersburg or anywhere else in the former Soviet Union, because I think they would have stopped patronizing her business. This is not right. So we're going to be destroying our own economy. And there are two nations. And, the Russia didn't go to war on the Ukraine. It's the government of Russia that started the war with Ukraine.
I think that's a great point that you raised, because we do understand there's propaganda on both sides. We do understand that it's really hard to sort out the truth of the matter. But at the end of the day, there is a difference between the governments and the people. So, of course, there may be Nazi elements in Ukraine, but of course, there's super innocent, just regular everyday citizens in Ukraine that want freedom. And then same thing in Russia. There might be elements of who knows what really is happening there, but there's innocent Russians living here, and others that don't agree with what's going on. So we do need to bring things back to people versus government. Shoot, I don't want to be associated with my government right now. I want to be looked at as a person.
Absolutely. And listen, this is what I hear. So when you put the news on, whether it's your CNN or CNBC or Fox, they're all talking about three people. They're talking about Biden, Zelensky, and Putin. So let's start talking about people of those countries. Mm-hmm. There is nothing we can do right now to change Putin's mind. He has a mission, and until he is finished with that mission, nothing is going to happen unless, cooler heads will prevail and somebody is going to put all of them to the table. He put his demands on the paper. So we all know that. Ukraine as a neutral country, he wanted to demilitarize that, Ukraine, because he doesn't want a nuclear state next to him. And he wants to denazify them. So again, this is the only thing that, again, none of us can kind of comprehend when he's talking about it. Because again, we know what that means from history, what neo-Nazis are, but we can't connect it to the current world. So he either knows more or he's exaggerating it. So just
there's a video that surfaced of Biden, and I'll play that later tonight. I'm planning on doing a live tonight to dig into some of the deeper issues of this. But there's a video from the 90s where Biden himself is saying, like, boy, if any of those areas wanted to get into NATO, that would sure, poke the bear, and that sure would cause something. And then he acts surprised that that's happening now. But no, you knew that would happen. So how much of this do you think should be?
Listen, again, we all knew what is going to happen, right? And if you go back into history, so I've lived almost quarter of my existence in the country that had a Cold War with the United States, right? So we understand that in 1945, they created NATO to go against the communist regime, right? So the communist regime created Warsaw Agreements in 1955 to go against the NATO. So, but when the communist regime fell, no more Soviet Union. Why did we still need the NATO? So, and one thing that I did not know that just kind of came up on the surface, that in the 90s, Russia wanted to be a part of the NATO. They said, if you're a defensive organization, we may have some other enemies against us. We can have Asia, China, Middle East, whoever else is there. If they're going to go against us, we want to be a part of the NATO. I didn't know that. So NATO said no, because they wanted to have that enemy. So even though there was no more communist regime and it was a free country to go on its own path, just like all 15 different countries of the Soviet Union, so they continued with NATO. And in the last 7 years, they admitted, I think, around 20 countries into the NATO by promising that NATO will not extend to the east. So again, he was poking the bear. And from the Cold War, now it's a hot war. Look what is happening in the world. And the only thing that Biden administration worries about is climate change. So they're not worried about people. Let me tell you. So this is probably the most humanitarian crisis, or the largest humanitarian crisis that we are going to see, hopefully, in our lifetimes. Almost 1.5 million people crossing the border, but this is Poland border. We don't know how many of them crossed the borders of Moldavia or Romania. So I have friends from Odessa who crossed Moldavian borders and now they're in Bulgaria. So people are leaving from all of the borders, cities. This is the text that I received today from Odessa. The city is almost empty, and whoever's left in the cities, they're just volunteering as much as they can. But there's no economic activity anywhere in Ukraine. So we're going to crush the Ukraine economy. We're going to crush Russian economy. We're going to crush all of the.
We're going to crush our economy in this.
This is what I was going to say. We're going to crush European economies. I don't know. Yes, we will, but we have much more than Europe and the countries that used to be that Eastern European bloc. They're not as wealthy as we are. So as of right now, we're making money, we're producing arms, we're sending aircraft, we are making money. There's a reason why $87 billion were left of equipment, military equipment in Afghanistan. So our military machine is going to continue making money. So somebody's making money at it and nobody's thinking about people. I was a refugee, right? I came to the country. The Soviets took our citizenship away. We came to this country as stateless, right? We didn't have a state. We didn't have citizenship. We had $72 per person, and we had one suitcase per person. Guess what is happening right now with all of the Ukrainians? So they can't take anything with them but a small suitcase. And all of the banks in Ukraine are closed. They can't access the money. So we can't even send them the money. They can't even receive the money anymore. They can't use their own, and they can't receive the money help. So it's just the craziness is happening. Everybody's going overboard on everything, right? Instead of coming together and figuring out the solutions. The more military aid we're going to help, the longer it's going to last. So this is something that's happening, but it's above my pay grade, right? It's above everybody's pay grade. We have three so-called leaders that are taking us down this path. So I can tell you that we need to start thinking about people. People have to come first. Look at what's happening with the sanctions here in the United States. I'm in Indiana. Our gas hit $4 yesterday. So I talked to the relatives in Philadelphia. They're at $5.75. So I looked already at what's happening in California. So they're crossing $7.
I mean, we just came out of lockdowns rationalized by a pandemic, and we're effectively going to be locked down again because of these gas prices.
But see,
I've stopped going to I have a studio I can use, and here I am dealing with like my home studio because like I'm trying to save money with the gas and the tolls and everything.
But think about, again, people here in the United States. It's not just, okay, we're going to save money, right? We can't go to work, right? We can't afford to put the gas in the car. We can't afford to buy medications. We can't afford to buy food for our children. We can't afford to do anything. So the lower and the middle class are going to get hit severely. So it's going to send us in a recession. So again, being a financial advisor, right? I have an MBA from Northwestern. I understand the economy. Everything seems to be like our government is doing it on purpose. Like they want to crash the economy, because when the economy is down, when it's destroyed, people need government help. So I feel like, I've lived in the country. They wanted all of us poor on our knees, depending on the government. And the same thing this administration, this government wants. So they're talking to Iran and they're talking to Venezuela today, actually, about lifting sanctions and buying oil from them. What Maduro is better than Putin? So do we have Iranian Ayatollahs better than Putin? So give them 13 months like you gave Putin, and in 13 months, we're going to have war with Israel, and we're going to have Maduro's regime taking over South America. So why they cannot just get out and say, you know what, this is an emergency. When you have your personal emergency, you change the course. This is an emergency. We're going to change the course. We're going to open Keystone Pipeline. We're going to lift all of the restrictions from all of the fossil fuels. Let's get back to energy independence. No, they're doubling down. Why?
It's insane. I mean, that's the thing is you have these politicians and our president saying, oh, we will not tolerate Putin and everything. And then they're literally giving him like funding this
billions,
war.
like $1 billion a day. Yeah,
I mean,
billions.
These are the things that I don't understand, that people can't put politics aside for a second, like forget R versus D and everything, and be like, look what is happening. I mean, and we're all struggling. And whether, if you truly disagree with what's happening, then why aren't you calling on the carpet these politicians that are funding this happening?
I think it's all ideology. So if I compare the old Soviet Union and I compare what's happening right now, it became very ideological. Just like Soviets will step over the dead bodies, I think the same thing is happening here right now. And ideology is not even politics, okay? Mm-hmm. When you're talking politics, you can negotiate. You can come up with a solution. But when there is an ideology, you can't break it. That ideology, I believe, came from Europe. All the green parties in Europe started this hysteria about the climate change. Not that I am against climate change and doing everything we possibly can to reduce CO2. And America is the best country who is actually doing that. But now they see that they depended between 50 and 70% of all of the energy in Europe comes from Russia. And it's not only energy, it's also precious metals, it's fertilizers. So how's it possible? So we're going to boycott Russia. So what's going to happen all over Europe? They're not going to get fertilizers. So what are they going to starve? So it doesn't, people are saying that Putin is playing chess and Biden is playing checkers. Biden's not playing anything. He doesn't understand the gambit, right? It doesn't look like he's looking 5, 7, 10 moves ahead of himself, and what can happen. So, people are saying, oh, he's just not intelligent enough, or his administration, no leadership. I don't believe in it. I believe that everything is being done on purpose. So his press secretary, a couple of days ago, when she was pushed for energy independence, so she said that, to enhance all the oil production and all of the natural gas production in the United States, it's misdiagnosis. So when I remember that word, misdiagnosis. When she said misdiagnosis, what it means, that there is a disease. It needs to be diagnosed. We diagnosed it. So we all gonna fall if we don't do something immediately. And it seems like nothing is happening.
Well, I mean, since you brought up Jen Psaki, she's saying like, well, even if we reopen the Keystone Pipeline, sorry, I can't stand Jen Psaki. She's like, even if we did that, it would take years for that to even make a difference. But you come from the financial field. I come from the financial field. I was a stockbroker for many years before I had to make a choice between journalism and that, because shocker, you can't do both. I tried. And so she doesn't understand like futures or consumer confidence or anything that, actually there could be an immediate feel or immediate change from that. What are your thoughts on that as a financial advisor?
And, again, when she retires, she's going to get government pension. When all of
Yeah,
our
what does she care?
congressmen and all of our senators and president, when they retire, they will receive a pretty nice package. You know what? Most of the people in the United States don't receive those packages. So, and they don't plan for the next 3 months. They plan for the next 5 years, 20 years. So they plan for the rest of their lives. And what they're doing right now, they're destroying everybody's savings. So people who wanted to retire are not going to be able to retire. And if there is a recession, it could take us a couple of years to get out of that recession. So opening now the Keystone Pipeline and getting back to energy independence is very important. But again, thinking financially, we know that around $6 per gallon here, this is where people start feeling the real pain. So they're hoping that if they can get it to $6, we're going to start buying electric cars. So number one, where are the electric cars? So there's a shortage of all of the cars around the country. Prices are skyrocketing.
Yeah, it's not like everyone can afford them. It's the electric cars aren't cheap.
No. You look at I don't know, Teslas, and not that I have looked at the electric cars lately, but who can afford them? So I don't know. It's just so disturbing to see this liberal ideology taking over America. I've talked to someone recently, a couple of very well off, and they're on liberal ideology, even though there is a war and we're all suffering, they can afford higher gas prices. And I ask them, so something has to be a priority, right? So in your household, you can't make everything a priority. So something has to become a priority. And they said, it's still climate change. And so what do you mean? Oh, we need to build all of the new houses using green technology. Never mind that people can't afford it. They can afford the housing prices right now. Put all of the on all of the houses, put next to them the wind turbines, so in everything, just get a little bit more economical energy to the houses. So she was talking about what is it that just disappeared from my head? What are you putting? The solar panels.
Oh,
solar panels. So to put a solar panel on the house was like $40,000. So I asked, what is the break-even point? So 9 years. So they're paying $50 a year, right, for electricity, but it's 9 years. Can anybody? I don't know anybody who can afford to spend 9 years worth of utility bills and pay it up front. Who do you know who can do that?
I mean, I can't even afford a house right now.
No, but you think about, this is how elites think, that all of us need to be able to afford it. And we can't. We can. The general population can't afford it. So we have to run America. We have to think about America. So President of Turkey came out and said, I'm not putting sanctions on Russia because it's going to hurt my people. So France came out, said, I'm not putting sanctions on Russia. We are not getting all of our companies out of Russia because it's going to hurt France. So, but nobody's thinking again about us. So all they're thinking about how to hurt Putin, but they're not thinking about their own people. So we need to think about American people. We need to think about people in Ukraine that right now are refugees. And as I said, I know what that means. I was glad when I was greeted here in Indianapolis by somebody who actually could help us to get accustomed to the lifestyle. Those are different countries, different languages. I don't know how people are even going to understand each other. But, I came to the United States without knowing a word of English, too. So we had to start with alphabet. But I don't know. The situation is dire in Ukraine. And for as long as we continue with the current strategy, I don't see that there's going to be an end.
being that you have kind of lived the American dream coming here as a refugee at 23 years old, you said?
Yep.
And with $76, and then now you're a successful businesswoman running for the House. They're in the 7th District of Indiana. What are your thoughts on our borders and the massive influx of welcoming all people in? On the one hand, you would think that you would be for that. So I'm interested what you have to say about that.
Again, it's the conversation. I don't know if we have enough time for that. We can have another 30 minutes for that.
Okay.
But just so again, thinking from the economical, financial perspective, right? We need 11 million people to fill the jobs openings that we have. So Americans, there was a part of American population that unfortunately got hooked on the promises of the government, right? So they're not necessarily wanted to get in my shoes when I was 23, 33 years ago, right? So what I'm trying to say is I always ask myself a question. So why did we make it? Why did all of the Ukrainians and Russians and everybody who came from the Soviet Union, why did we make it? Because we didn't trust the government. We didn't take a penny from welfare. So, and here you see that people are trusting the government to take care of them instead of being independent. So I think this has kind of propelled us to get to where we are. Because it was a no-no. We felt like we would sell our souls to the government, right? So if we do that. So, but you're talking about the immigration, we need more people in this country, right? But it took my family almost 20 years for all of them to get together. So we came here legally. It was a long journey. Then we're looking at people who just crossing the border. I understand them because, again, if I couldn't come here legally, I would try the way to get in, to give my children a better future, to give myself a chance to a better life, right? So, but at the same time, how do we do that, right? How do we stay humane? How do we do it? If we could close the borders, and we can bring some good ideas on how to start working, let's say, with Hispanic community that's already here and hiding. And this is what they do. They hide. They're afraid of ICE. They're afraid of the government. So most of them don't trust the government. They get it. So the 7th district is very diverse. We have 13.2% in the 7th district of Hispanics. We have 24%, I think, Black community, and the rest of them whites. I believe maybe 1 or 2% Asians. So I've talked to the Hispanic community and I asked them the same question that you are asking. So how do we deal with it? And why are you guys are not as successful as, let's say, our immigration who came here in late 80s, beginning of 90s. And, they all telling me the same thing. When I came, because my citizenship was revoked, I knew that I will never go back, right? That this is going to be my country. So I made the best of it. These people, because they don't know that it's going to be their country, they're living in the shadow. So as a House representative, what I would do personally, I would think about giving everybody the right to work. They're very hard workers that our economy and all of the Americans need. And then, there is a law that refugees to the United States, they're eligible for government assistance right away. But immigrants to the United States are not eligible for any government assistance for 5 years. It hasn't changed. So my proposal would be make it 10 years. These people broke the law, but if for 10 years they do not use any government assistance, and if they don't take from this society, and if they show that they came here to become the contributing members of America, then give them the citizenship. So something like this was already proposed, I believe, in 2014. And Pelosi basically said, not happening. We need citizenship, because Pelosi wants what? Voters. And we want people. We want to empower them. We want to tell them, you're already here. We understand why you're here. I get it. I think a lot of Americans get it. We want the same thing for our children that they want for their children. But you broke the law. Let's do this. Show America, show American people that you're a contributor, that you didn't just come here to live on the taxpayers' money, and then apply for citizen. But for as long as Pelosi is in the House, for as long as that liberal ideology stands, that they're only looking at Hispanics as voters and not as people, nothing is going to happen. We need to, the reason why I want to run is because I think I have a pretty good life story. You're saying American dream. People tell me that all the time. And I said, you know what? My story is not any different from the story of a lot of other people who immigrated here at the same time. Not any different. So the only difference may be is that I persevered. I understood how to get to a certain point. So always start with an end in mind, right? So, and our laws have to be designed with an end in mind, just like for the illegal and legal immigration. So what are you trying to accomplish? But without closing the borders, nothing's going to happen. Nothing. So they need to continue building that wall, and they need comprehensive reform when it comes to the immigration. They need a comprehensive reform when it comes to education. So Marion County, the 7th district for which I'm running for, 76%, I believe, literacy rate. 3 out of 5 kids cannot read or write at their grade level. This is ridiculous in America. Ridiculous. It should not happen. So all these liberal run cities, crime. Indianapolis is like number 2 in murders per capita in the country. It was the safest city in America. So there are a lot of issues, as you can see. We can't solve all of them, but hopefully being a part of the government will allow me to make a difference. So I think I was like born to figure out what my God's given abilities are. And I'm still trying to figure out what I can do with my abilities for a greater good. We just decided we have to become independent. We have to be financially independent for me to leave my businesses and go into the government. So we're there. This is why I stepped out and I said, okay, anything, I owe this country. I owe people of this country. And I wish that everybody would feel that way. This country made it a home for us. And Hoosiers here in Indiana, every one of them, they greeted us with open hands. They became our mentors. But again, a personal effort to figure out who you are and what you contribute to the greater society, to the greater good, I think is very important.
I know I'm like way over on time with you, so I want to wrap this up.
Absolutely.
We'll have to do this again, but just wanted to since we didn't bring it up, there is another Ukraine born person already in the House from Indiana in the 5th district. You said
yes.
Sparts, and you said she's over in Poland right now.
Yeah, so we're in touch with Victoria. I texted with her yesterday and, of course, thank her for everything that she does there in Poland with helping the refugees. She also has family in the areas that are being bombarded right now by Russian forces. So she has a 95-year-old father there. So as I said, it's a human tragedy. So here in Indiana, what we're trying to do is to save or collect the money and send as much as we possibly can to Victoria, different charitable organizations. I've always supported people with disabilities in Odessa, Ukraine, or kids with disabilities. And so it was very difficult for them to evacuate those kids. It was very difficult to evacuate some orphanages. So we were sending money directly to the orphanages. So they took, I believe, 126 kids from Odessa orphanage, and now they're all landed in Germany. So they're being taken care of. And of course, people's hearts are open to all of the refugees. Let's help them all to resettle, and hopefully, this war is going to be over soon, and we're going to be able to help them to rebuild.
And can you remind us how we can support you, where we can find your campaign page?
So the website is Angela for Indiana, and anybody who can donate to our cause to take over the 7th district, please go on winred.com and search for Angela for Indiana.
Awesome. So many different directions we could have taken this, and we did cover a lot, could have covered even more. Thank you so much for coming on, Angela, and good luck to you. Your primary is on May
3rd.
May 3rd. Awesome. All right.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm always available to talk to your listeners.
Awesome. Great. We'll have to dig into some other areas. It's always fascinating to hear different perspectives. And
absolutely.
You. Well, thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Like, share, comment, and share. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. So just to summarize, that was Angela Grabkovski, Angela for Indiana. She's new to the game as far as entering politics. She's frightened with what's going on. She came here as a refugee, 23 years old, with $76. Now is a successful businesswoman. Fascinating insights. And I think the big takeaway from that interview was the media. The media is telling you Biden, Zelensky, Trump, Putin, and just these individuals, and focusing on the governments. And there's so much propaganda on both sides. It's hard to make sense of. I, of course, can't even fully know what's going on with so much, but we have been digging into this, especially looking at old articles, tying in history. My husband has really dug into this. He has tons of great information to share. The plan, that's always subject to change when you have children and everything going on. But the plan is we'll be live tonight, sharing lots of clips, videos, digging into, really, I got to give him the credit, what he has researched and uncovered about sorting out the propaganda from the truth when it comes to Ukraine versus Russia. So make sure you check back. I know this page is suppressing and all kinds of funny business, so don't expect notifications. Check back often if you think about it. Share with your friends. Make sure that you're following on alternative platforms. But again, the big takeaway here is don't fall for the countries and the talking points and the main heads. Think about the people. Just think about the people. There's obviously innocent, good people in Ukraine. There's obviously innocent, good people in Russia or from Russia and living here. So keep it about the people first, and don't buy into the narratives of the government, because I certainly don't want to be defined by my government right now with the disaster of what has been happening. So just beware of of the propaganda, of what they want you to think. I mean, it is sick. It's to me that you have BBC coming out talking about how important independent journalism is because Russia basically is booting them out, and CNN horrified that they've been like basically booted out because Russia has called them fake news. Yet they have no problem with the government arbitrarily deciding who can say what here in America. You have our Surgeon General asking for big tech to hand over those who are saying what the government doesn't want them to say. And FOIA results have shown now that the government, the administration, was actively funding even the news sites like Fox News and Newsmax to only report positive things in their campaign for you know what, trying to not get censored here. So how hypocritical, how laughable that these news organizations would suddenly say that they stand for independent journalism, yet they have no problem with our government attacking, stirring people up to ridicule, to sue those that have a dissenting opinion, those that have every right to have an opinion, that they are experts, maybe they're minorities, but they have, who knows? We can't even know what to believe anymore with what we're told, but they have every right to have an opinion. They have every right to have dissenting opinion. It's integral to science. It's integral to journalism to hear all sides. So simple. But thanks for tuning in, and share, support, do whatever you can. And hopefully I'll be seeing you this evening with my husband in a episode of Scott Off the Press. That is the plan. We'll see if it works out. Thanks for joining me.